Proverbs chapter 22. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, loving favor rather than silver and gold. The rich and the poor have this in common: the Lord is the maker of them all. A prudent man foresees evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. By humility and the fear of the Lord are riches and honor and life. Thorns and snares are in the way of the perverse. He who guards his soul will be far from them. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. He who sows iniquity will reap sorrow, and the rod of his anger will fail. He who has a generous eye will be blessed, for he gives of his bread to the poor. Cast out the scoffer, and contention will leave. Yes, strife and reproach will cease. He who loves purity of heart and has grace on his lips, the king will be his friend. The eyes of the Lord preserve knowledge, but he overthrows the words of the faithless. The lazy man says, "There is a lion outside, I shall be slain in the streets." The mouth of an immoral woman is a deep pit. He who is abhorred by the Lord will fall there. Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. The rod of correction will drive it far from him. He who oppresses the poor to increase his riches, and he who gives to the rich will surely come to poverty. Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your heart to my knowledge. For it is a pleasant thing if you keep them within you. Let them all be fixed upon your lips, so that your trust may be in the Lord. I have instructed you today, even you. Have I not written to you excellent things of counsel and knowledge, that I may make you know the certainty of the words of truth, that you may answer words of truth to those who send to you? Do not rob the poor because he is poor, nor oppress the afflicted at the gate. For the Lord will plead their cause, and plunder the soul of those who plunder them. Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go, lest you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul. Do not be one of those who shakes hands in a pledge, one of those who is surety for debts. If you have nothing with which to pay, why should he take away your bed from under you? Do not remove the ancient landmark which your fathers have set. Do you see a man who excels in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before unknown men. Here in Proverbs 22, verse 17, we see a section introduced that's called the sayings of the wise men. Well, what I want to highlight today is verses 17 through 20. Starting with verse 17, it says, "Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your heart to my knowledge." So the author is inviting us to listen to the wisdom of this book, not just to hear it, but to listen. So there's a difference between hearing and listening. We can hear things going on the radio behind us and not pay any attention to them at all. Listening is when we actually pay attention to it, when we accept the sound and we apply it. In other words, for instance, the radio in my car sometimes in the past, I have found myself that I went to turn it on and actually I turned it off. And it had been on the whole time, but I wasn't actually listening to it. I might have been hearing it, but my mind wasn't actually processing the information that it was giving to me. Well, here, listening is taking the sound and understanding it. It is acknowledging what you're hearing and putting it into application. Notice verse 17 says, after we hear the words of the wise, then we apply it. Well, in verse 18, we see that it is a pleasant thing to keep that knowledge within us. We should also keep that same knowledge fixed on our lips, within us, always on our mind. We should be reading, we should be meditating, we should be memorizing God's word and always keeping it with us, because, as verse 20 reveals, so that your trust may be in the Lord. So the more we learn about the ways of the Lord, the more we learn to trust him, the more we learn to acknowledge him. The more that we acknowledge that his promises are true, the more hope that we have in him, the more that we understand him. God's promises are true. God's word is true. But when we just say, I believe it, I'll think about it when I absolutely need it, and when I run to it, I don't know where to go because I'm not familiar with it. God challenges us here to go to his word, to understand it, to trust in it, to read it, to memorize it, to meditate it, to be familiar with it. That's his word, and it's the way that we can learn to love him and to be more obedient to him by meditating and memorizing his word. Well, I thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you'll come back tomorrow and see what we have in store. Have a great day, and God bless.